Hello students, how are you? In my last lecture, I told you about the partition of India, and there we discussed that India had been divided into two parts, and the two nation theory had been adopted. And in this way, on the base of religion, India had been divided into India and Pakistan. Now, we have to discuss the consequences of partition. The first thing is here, was India to be a Hindu nation? In fact, the leaders of Indian national struggle did not believe in the two nation theory. And yet, partition on a religious basis had taken place. Did that make India a Hindu nation automatically? Even after large scale migration of Muslims to the newly created Pakistan, the Muslim population in India accounted for 12% of the total population in 1951. So, how would the government of India treat its Muslim citizens and other religious minority also, like Sikh, Christian, Jain, Buddhist, Parsi, Jews, etc.? This partition had already created severe conflict between Hindus and Muslims. Many people, even political leaders, said when the Muslims had been given a separate Muslim nation, then what were they doing in India? But most of the leaders of national movement believed that India must treat persons of all religion equally, because we believed in communal harmony. And they decided that all citizens would be equal irrespective of their religious affiliation. So they cherished, therefore, the ideal of secular nation. And in this way, some political interests were also. That means they wanted that India would behave equally all the religions, because it was the culture of India, because we believed in the principle of Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam. So there were political interests also. Now, British India was divided into what were called the British Indian provinces and the princely states. The British Indian provinces were directly under the control of British government, while several large and small states were ruled by princes, called the princely states. And during colonial rule, they had accepted British supremacy. And this was called paramountcy of British Crown. So, princely states covered one-third of land area of the British Indian Empire, and 1 out of 4 Indians lived under princely rules. Now, here the question is government approach. What was the approach of government towards nation building? The interim government took a firm stance against the possible division of India into small principalities of different size. The Muslim League opposed the Indian National Congress and took the view that the states should be free to adopt any course, either India or Pakistan, they liked. At that time, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, who was India's Deputy Prime Minister as well as Home Minister also during this crucial period. He played historic role in negotiating with the rulers of princely states firmly but diplomatically and bringing out most of them into Indian Union. He succeeded in bringing them in Indian Union. It may look easy now, but in fact, it was a very difficult task which required skillful persuasion. We can say that there were 26 small states in today's Odisha and Gujarat, 14 big states, and many other small states also. The government approach was guided by three considerations. The people of most princely states clearly wanted to be part of Indian Union. Secondly, the government was prepared to be flexible in giving autonomy to some regions. The idea was to accommodate plurality and adopt a flexible approach in dealing with the demands of regions. And thirdly, in the backdrop of partition which brought into focus the contest over demarcation of territory, the integration and consolidation of the territorial boundaries of the nation had assumed supreme importance. Means that time the welfare of nation or unification of nation was given more priority than all other things. So before 15 August 1947, peaceful negotiations had brought almost all states whose territories were contiguous to the new boundary of India into the Indian Union. The rulers of most of the states signed a document called Instrument of Accession, which meant that their state agreed to become a part of Indian Union. Accession of the princely states of like Junagadh, Hyderabad, Kashmir and Manipur proved more difficult than the rest. The issue of Junagadh was resolved after a plebiscite confirmed people's desire to join India. Later we will discuss about it. The next is Hyderabad. Hyderabad at that time the largest of the princely states, surrounded entirely by Indian territory. Though some part of old Hyderabad state now are part of Maharashtra, Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh. Its ruler carried the title Nizam. You have read many times Nizam of Hyderabad or Hyderabad's Nizam, and he was one of the world's richest men. The Nizam wanted an independent status for Hyderabad because the British had declared if any state wants to remain independent or it did not want to join any of the union, India and Pakistan, it could remain independent also. So he entered into what was called the Standstill Agreement with India in November 1947 for a year, while negotiations with the Indian government were going on. In the meantime, a movement of the people of Hyderabad state against the Nizam's rules gathered force. The peasantry in the Telangana region was the victim of Nizam's oppressive rule, and they rose against Nizam. Women also had seen the worst of this oppression, joined the movement in large number. And the Hyderabad city was the main center of this movement. The Nizam responded by unleashing a paramilitary force known as Rajakars on the people. He ordered these Rajakars to crush the movement. The atrocities and communal nature of the Rajakars knew no bound. They murdered, raped, and looted, targeting particularly the non-Muslim people. So, Sardar Patel had a negotiation with the principal secretary of Nizam, Qasim Rizvi. I have given a link in this slide. You may visit, then you will come to know about the negotiation that took place between Sardar Patel and the secretary of Nizam. And when Nizam refused to join Indian Union, at last Sardar Patel ordered army to take action against Nizam. And after a few days of intermittent fighting, the Nizam surrendered, and in this way Hyderabad became a part of India. The next is Manipur. A few days before independence, the Maharaja of Manipur, Bodh Chandra Singh, signed the instrument of accession with the Indian government on the assurance that the internal autonomy of Manipur would be maintained. Under the pressure of public opinion, the Maharaja held election in Manipur in June 1948, and the state became a constitutional monarchy. Thus, Manipur was the first part of India to hold an election based on universal adult franchise or universal adult suffrage. You can call universal suffrage also. In the Legislative Assembly of Manipur, there were sharp differences over the question of merger of Manipur with India. When the state congress wanted to merge Manipur with India, but other political parties were opposed to this. At last, Government of India pressurized the Maharaja to sign merger agreement in September 1949, and the Assembly of Manipur was not consulted for this. Therefore, it caused a lot of anger and resentment in Manipur, the repercussions of which are still being felt. Even many times we face some problems in Northeast like that. Now we come to reorganization of states. The process of nation building did not come to an end with partition and integration of princely states. These challenges were to draw the internal boundaries of the Indian states. It means it was a big challenge for India, how to draw the boundary of Indian states. You have read in your 10th class the partition of state on the base of language spoken in that area. So the boundaries had to be drawn in a way so that the linguistic and cultural plurality of the country could be reflected without affecting the unity of nation. During colonial rule, the state boundaries were drawn either on administrative convenience or simply coincided with the territories annexed by the British government or the territories ruled by princely powers. After the Nagpur session of Congress in 1920, the principle was recognized as the basis of reorganization of the Indian National Congress Party itself. So many provincial Congress committees were created by linguistic zones, which did not follow the administrative division of British India. This change after independence and partition, and our nationalist leader felt that carving out state on the basis of language might lead to disruption and disintegration. You have studied in 10th class in detail. So it was felt that this would draw attention away from other social and economic challenges that the country faced. Therefore, this decision was postponed, and this decision was challenged by the local leaders also and the people. So protests began in the Telugu speaking areas of old Madras province, and that is now part of Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh, Kerala and Karnataka, etc. So Telugu speaking areas should be separated from Madras province, of which they were part, and be made into a separate Andhra province. And therefore, many such movements, either in Andhra Pradesh or in Tamil Nadu, they started. And it created big disputes also in the nation. Even in Madras, several legislators resigned their seats in protest. Finally, Prime Minister Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru announced the formation of a separate Andhra in December 1952. So, in this way, the movement was going on, and later many other states also came into existence on the base of language. So, here I end this topic, and next time I will try to start one new chapter. Now this chapter has been finished, and next time we will try to start another chapter, but next time I will take chapter of your first book, or that chapter will be second chapter, because first chapter you have discussed, and we will start second chapter of your first book. Now I would like to request you all that you must revise this chapter and try to solve the exercise, and then whenever your school reopen, it will be considered as your assessment. So stay safe, stay at home. Thank you, beta.